Welcome back to another episode of COVID-19 from Crisis to Creation here on Mentor TV. I'm your host, Patricia Falco Beccalli. Now today you have to bear with me because I have to tell you a little bit the story how I came to dig deeper into something that I think may touch all of us and did touch all of us during this COVID-19 crisis. That is A, social distancing, and B, the question about how to look after patients, continued patients, and remote care and diagnostics. So I looked at the market, what is actually happening there during the crisis, and what does that mean for the future. And then I came across the digital healthcare market. Now, let me indulge you before I introduce you to a couple of very important people in this conversation in a screen share. Now, the digital health market is huge. I was flabbergasted myself, and I like numbers. You might have figured that by now. I like numbers. I'm a bit of a number nerd. So the Global Market Insight tells us that the digital global health market is going to balloon to almost $500 billion in 5 years' time. Now, the CAGR, the growth rate, the continued growth rate in that particular segment is an average of about 30% since 2019. So there is a lot that already happened, and I think there will be a lot continuing to happen. Now, I'm going to stop screen sharing right now. So the digital health market is one thing. The other thing is, all right, so what is really continued patient care and what is the focal point in terms of disease? And the most dynamics, I'm sad to say, is cancer. Cancer patients, cancer treatment, diagnostics. According to the World Health Organization, 1 in 6 people's death is actually caused by cancer, and the numbers are going to continue to go up. So again, diagnostics, very important. And now I'm coming to the point what we're actually looking at, and that is highly sophisticated digital microscopy technology and how important it really is for remote care, not only due to a crisis such as COVID-19, but also because geriatrics are going to allow for this more and more. So meaning you can stay at home, whatever your condition, and you will be looked after, diagnosed, and cared for, even if you're not directly with your doctor. Now, a lot of talk, because even for me, this is like a really interesting but difficult issue. I've invited the 2 co-CEOs of PreciPoint. PreciPoint is a German company building exactly that, digital microscopy, but not only the hardware, but the entire ecosystem. And so let me welcome Nicolas Weiss to you. He's the CEO focusing on strategy, and also Dominik Gerber, he's the CEO and he's focusing on operations. Gentlemen, I'm sorry for taking so long to finally get to you, and you are the real stars of the show, but I think I needed to put a little bit into perspective what we are trying to dig deeper. Nicolas, let me kick you off with a very basic question for me and the entire community. What is digital microscopy, and why did it have such a huge dynamics in this digital healthcare market itself?
Yeah, Patricia, thanks first of all for having us, and then I go straight to your question. Digital microscopy is basically the capturing of images that are on these microscopic slides that we all most probably know from biology classes in school, and that the doctors who are diagnosing cancer are handling every day in hundreds of those. So the problem currently is that the doctors are using mainly conventional microscopes for their diagnostics, and also these glass slides. And the consequence is that the location of diagnostics is bound to the lab. So what we are doing by digitizing these slides is that we basically give potential access to the whole world to these images, and therefore also can enhance the quality of diagnostics, because doctors and experts can share this information much easier on a global scale.
Yeah, and Dominik, why isn't the digitalization of this particular part of healthcare, why hasn't it happened yet? Or it seems to be rather slow.
Mm. Yeah, it is. It is a very complex topic at the end of the day, because if you want to provide a solution, it's not only about having a digital microscope. It's really, as you pointed out at the beginning, it's about the ecosystem. So you need to have a solution for storing terabytes of data. You want to move data from one location to the other. You need to have new workspaces for your doctors so that they're capable of using your digital images. So it's a very, very complex technology that you need to offer, and that has taken time. But I'm very, very confident that the 20s, so the upcoming decade, will be remembered as the time when, microscopy truly went digital.
Well, Nicolas, truly went digital. So how far are we actually down the process, and how much momentum is in that particular part of the digital healthcare market right now?
Well, the degree of adoption in diagnostic itself, not talking about the academic community, but really about diagnostics, is actually very low. They're currently below 1%. So there is, like, the first movers are already using it, and there are some companies and some players who are already moving into that, but it's far away from the scale where it can be established. So we're there really in just the very early beginnings of the market expansion of that, while technology is really getting ready, or partly is ready to be implemented in these processes.
So is the technology actually there to do exactly that? Remote diagnostics through imaging technology, the expert sitting somewhere in Singapore and the actual patient somewhere in Germany?
The technology is definitely there. I think sometimes it's just not completely adapted to the right use case. It's also something that we are doing in our development processes, that we work very, very closely, would rather say super tight, with our development partners, who are all doctors around the globe, and we really develop a solution that is then also fitting their needs and gives them just on a fingertip all the information that they need to make their decisions, that are very important, obviously.
So, okay, Dominik, then let me ask you, right now, how is it really being done? You take tissue samples, or pathologist then gets his tissue samples, and then basically handmade is going to analyze it, also diagnose it. Tell us a little bit about the actual process.
Yes. So when you ask a doctor, are you working digital? Yeah. They will tell you yes. Yeah. Because, digital is a big word, right? And when you then walk into one of those labs, you're really astonished and taken by surprise how manual everything is, and how a little bit old-fashioned things are. Yeah. So if you look at the pathology lab, then you have a lab where biopsies, so material from a human or an animal, is processed, and that is a very, very manual process. So you prepare slides manually that are then put onto a glass slide, yeah, and eventually a doctor is sitting there with an old-fashioned analog microscope, and basically manually observing that sample, and then he will come up with a judgment of what he's seeing, and based on that judgment, then a therapy is put forward for the patient. That's everywhere in the world. It's pretty much the same process, so it's very standardized across the globe, which is good for us in that sense. But it's still very, very manual, and it's going to change. Yeah.
Nicolas, I was under the impression that digital microscopy has been around for a while. So once you have the technology, why is the application and the implementation, why doesn't it seem to happen like Dominik is saying?
So, yeah, firstly, humans are not so good in combining the right technologies for the bigger use sometimes, I would say. We can just think about the famous example of wheels and suitcases, right? It just took
You mean your trolley, the trolley you take when you are like at the moment not traveling, but you just take it around the house to get the feel that, okay, I'm back in line. Okay.
Exactly. And I would say both things are pretty long around, and it took us, it feels like an eternity until we were able to actually combine that. Yeah. And I mean, so taking that into account, there's also additionally to that, a tremendous amount of complexity when it comes to actually digitizing microscopic slides. I mean, the core technology of that is, of course, that we also find in cameras, but then we need to adjust for all the factors that come along with dealing on a very, on a microscopic level where errors are not as forgivable like with normal resolutions. So that adds an extra layer of complexity, and also you need more advanced technology, more performance in cameras and computers and so on. So I would say 20 years ago, we were not there yet completely for digital microscopy. Now we definitely are, and we are getting even more there as technology advances. So it's rather getting easier, yeah, and also makes the whole landscape a little bit more competitive in the midterm, I think, which is good because that actually fosters the patient care in the end when we have their better equipment, and also comes along with a need for being more innovative for companies like ours. So I think we're there pretty well off with the pipeline that we have with the development pipeline, but generally, I think the main reasons is the complexity why it took quite some time until technology got there.
Yeah. So Nicolas, Dominik was just telling us about the manual process, where a lot of people are still involved in, laboratories are involved in. And now let's move into what actually PreciPoint is putting out and is approaching these people with, these professionals with their technology. Tell us about the digitization of these samples, how the data is not only captured, but then also archived, transmitted, and then really used for patient care.
Sure. So mainly we need to already start in the sample preparation process to have the full capability of really capturing the data in the right way, store it the right way, and of course also map it then later on to the right patient data, which is absolutely critical. That is one thing. What we're doing then is, as soon as this data is digitized, that you provide it to the right doctor within that lab or within the working community of that lab that has there the most experience. So the doctor is then able to digitally review all the slides and make his or her diagnostic decision. In case, and now basically the big value added comes, should the doctor not be confident with the decision or seek a second opinion or something, it's really just the click of the mouth, and it's out there. So you can share it with an expert in New York, you can share it with your colleagues in Singapore, wherever you think the best people are to judge that. You can share it. Additionally to that, you could add an extra security layer where you have algorithms double checking your decision. And if you're too far away from the result of the algorithm, you can also ask yourself, okay, maybe that's a case that I also have to re-examine by a third party. And with the implementation of these processes that are like now still in the development as the core technology develops, I think there's still much more to come how we actually can improve patient care with this technology. And that's also the interesting path that we are going here.
Dominik, do you want to add to that?
I think that pretty much describes, yes, especially for the patient, that patient care is significantly improved with digital microscopy, and also how doctors are working with it. I think there are a couple of more factors that are making the technology very attractive. So one is definitely efficiency. Yeah, with digital technologies, lab owners can see their lab workflows and processes being more efficient. So they could achieve, for example, more throughput or have savings. Yeah, and there's also a very emotional component to the technology. We do see a lot of doctors that are taking basically no holidays. They're having no free time because, again, they're bound to their labs. Yeah, and with digital technologies, we do see a lot of doctors telling us very, very frankly that they're excited with the advent of these digital technologies, that they're able to work half a day from home, or to even go on holidays, yeah, after 7 years.
That I didn't expect. It's like, okay, PreciPoint as an enabler for doctors to relax a bit and have a balanced lifestyle.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, no. If you look at the profiles of a pathologist, they have a huge problem with the younger generation, because pathologists nowadays are basically sitting in their basements, no windows. I'm just going to the extremes here, but it's not the most attractive profile, even though you can make a lot of money. Salaries are good, but still. And I think with digital technologies, they will improve their profile, so they will have more people attracted to the job. And again, they can make holidays, because pathologists are rare, and they have really a lot of pressure getting the work done. So it's not the
Yeah, no, it's an interesting dynamic, because on one hand you have, and we are just now specifically using the case of cancer and cancer detection and diagnosis as one specific example. You have that, which is growing, seems to be growing. On the other hand, it seems that pathology, or becoming a pathologist, is not the most attractive kind of choice you want to do as a profession. And then you just mentioned the money, and let me indulge you a little bit, the money that pathologists potentially make. Here, the global digital pathology market is actually also expecting to grow by about 13% between 2018 and 23, and is expected to reach a volume of $8.3 billion, which is potentially very good for your type of business. But it really shows that there is not only money to be made, but really lives to be saved. Now, I wanted to dig into something also maybe with you, Nicolas, that Dominik just mentioned, and you refer to it, the data transfer. So you have the possibility to look at a tissue sample live right here. But at the same time, if you're unsure about your diagnosis, you can share it with an ecosystem of other doctors and get their opinions. What about cybersecurity? What about the actual data? Well, that is something for me, potential patient, as we all are. That would be something I think is, I love the technology. However, how am I secure that my data is not going to be used in any other way?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's not a problem that's specific to our products or our company, but that's a huge concern overall in the healthcare industry, how healthcare data is actually handled and how it is secured. Yeah. So we on our side, we of course work there always very closely with the partners that we have to make sure that there is a valid concept to actually protect the data. Because every institution has their own infrastructure and how they handle data. And without that very close cooperation with them, we actually can't achieve the goal of data security. So it's a very individual thing. And in the end, it lies mainly in the hands of our clients. But we do on our side, of course, the maximum to guarantee that security. But in the end, it's mainly a thing that concerns the client. It's like your house. You know, when you buy certain device for your house and you're using it there, you can of course ask, yeah, how safe is that device and how safe is the data? But since the data generated is in your household, so it can be accessed there easier, you should secure the access to your household. And that's pretty much the same here with bigger institutions.
Dominik?
Yes, Nicolas is absolutely right. And maybe also give some perspective on PreciPoint. I mean, in our case, it's a tissue, a picture basically taken under a microscope, and maybe some barcode information, which is a number. So in our case, it's maybe a little bit less specific, a little bit less risky data. But again, what Nicolas said is absolutely right. You have to work very, very closely with the decision makers on the client side.
Okay, so the reason why I'm also asking, I wonder whether there is some, hard regulation that is really protecting both sides, I guess, those that need to make the diagnosis and those that are being diagnosed. That is one thing. The other thing that you mentioned I would like to, expand on a little bit is AI. Artificial intelligence, so machine learning, really filtering into the set of data that you are in your throughput getting and gaining. So, the IP basically, or the rights to the data silo you are building, the big data you're building, and then the analysis of it to a point where it actually can run by itself and diagnose similar pictures. I mean, are we there yet? Is that not really, really scary or potential risk also to say, yeah, we have an AI diagnosing you with or without a certain type of perhaps cancer?
Yeah, so I think AI got very, very far so far, and I think it will also be a very valuable source of information in the future. I don't see in the short term that AI is taking over any doctor's job. I can definitely see that that it's making the work of doctors more efficient, because especially lower level tasks can be done automatically, and then just the results provided to the doctor, who then makes a final decision. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of value in there, and also a lot of companies specializing there in different like subcategories of cancer, and really making their very, very good progress that is very necessary to actually make better diagnosis. For us, this is a very interesting symbiosis between those AI companies and us, because like you would need digital images and the digital infrastructure in order to have actually the resources to apply these AI algorithms. And for us, it's very valuable that they create these algorithms, because then the value chain and also the value created for customers just gets bigger. So yeah, I think it's a very interesting subject that we're facing there. But I think the way for the AI companies is still a little bit longer than for a company like ours. Yeah. The point there is that they really come at the very end of the process, and when there's not really a digital workflow broadly established in the industry, it will be hard to sell that. Yeah. So yeah, that's a little bit the
Yeah, that's interesting because you need to still observe the market and how far it can then be a technology to be implemented in a day-to-day process of what PreciPoint is all about. So Dominik, let's then get a little bit deeper into what PreciPoint does and the way like you two as two young entrepreneurs and co-founders of that company have seen the pre-crisis COVID-19 crisis in the company, the way it's been going for the past few months. It's only a short time. However, perhaps you saw some impact on PreciPoint, and how you envisage, you know, the future is going to impact you, your development, your you know, options of raising finance, for example. What are the opportunities here you see? What are the challenges?
Yeah, very good question. So yes, it has been quite challenging the last 2-3 months, definitely, as customers aren't available, so they're not picking up their phones, they're postponing orders, they're not around, whatever. Yeah, so it has been very, very challenging, and but I think our team adjusted really, really nicely. We're very proud here with the whole team. You know, I think as a startup, you know, you're in this dynamic environment, you know, that every day you might have to turn left or right quite unexpectedly. So I think overall we adapted very, very quickly, and we went to home office and just adjusted our work processes very nicely. And even though it's very challenging, yes, and I think Nico will talk a little bit more on the fundraising side, give some more insights later. But overall, for the company, we see COVID-19 having a positive midterm impact, as it is really fast tracking digital technologies, right? It's as we are seeing with Zoom and Teams from Microsoft, you know, people are just going crazy for digital technologies, rightfully so. And basically we expect or see the same happening in the healthcare market. You know, digital healthcare has been around as a buzzword for such a long time, but now you really need to look into it and make sure that you're getting your solutions implemented and you're getting digital. So we see and foresee, you know, a positive outlook for us as a company as more customers will seek solutions.
Yet, Nicolas, Dominik just saying that the customers are not picking up the phones. You're trying to get to them. So whilst he foresees that digital medicine now really has a place and a growing place going forward in the healthcare sector, you know, there is a bit of insecurity. And is it something you think is going to stay for a while? And why that reaction?
First, there's a little bit of insecurity. You see that with clients, you see that with investors, you see that when you just look into the eyes of people on the street, yeah, if you meet them. So I think it's a very natural reaction, and of course that is a current impact that we all feel, yeah, and that we have to handle. I think the most important thing is to understand that it's mainly temporarily, yeah. Mm-hmm. And that we also need to have more sensitivity for the other side, because they have now all their own concerns, yeah, and are having their own challenges and problems. So maybe when we talk about sales or fundraising or whatever, it's not the first thing that we ask when we interact now with our partners. It's just rather like, hi, how are you? And like, what can we actually do for you now? And have a little bit of a more open approach. Is it good for you to talk now? These kind of things, yeah, because you have to be a little bit more sensitive on in which situation you find the other person. Yeah. That is one thing. Then, I mean, this kind of fear that is now, I would say, a little bit overshadowing the whole world, is also understandable, because it's partly used by institutions to also control part of this society. I'm not saying that it's bad. It's a measure that you can take to also prevent bigger dangers. Yeah, and the other thing is that fear will stay a bit, but it will also vanish. Yeah. And that is something, it will certainly leave some traces, and you need to ask yourself what kind of traces it will leave, because it's mainly the fear actually that is leaving this traces. So I think it's also a common example, like how September 11 changed traveling,
Mm-hmm.
and we can expect something similar for general behavior in the hygienic field, or also in healthcare, and how we interact with other people. And that is something that you need to take into account.
Yeah, Dominik. So I think this is really interesting what Nicolas is saying in terms of the overall trend, and also the way, your potential clients or clients are reacting, and investors as well. But I wonder, you as a startup company or young company, what are your main learnings of this? Is maybe the first big super tsunami crisis that hit PreciPoint. Looking back at the last few weeks and the adjustments, nimble adjustments you were referring to earlier on, what are the main learnings you want to take and perhaps also share here with us, saying, okay, we could have done a few things beforehand, perhaps expecting a crisis, and this is what we're going to do just to make sure that, should another one appear, that we are handling it better?
Mm. Yes, I think one big lesson definitely that we are taking away from it is to be very, very decisive, at all times. When it's, when things are going well, you sometimes let things flow for a bit too long, whether that's in sales with the team, with decisions that you're postponing. And I think a crisis is always putting forward pressure to really make decisions right now, and I think that's a mindset that you should always have, right? Whether it's good or bad times. That's one thing, and definitely a second topic that we've learned. At the end of the day, it's really always survival of the fittest, and survival of the fittest doesn't mean the strongest one, but it's the person or organization or institution that is adapting to the new circumstances, and that's always what we're challenging each other, the two of us, and within the team. What's coming next? So how are we going to adjust? What can we do more? What can we do extra? What is the extra mile to go? And that's a mindset that we want to keep also for as long as possible.
Nicolas?
Yeah, these kind of crises is something, first of all, you need to accept that you can't fully prepare because you can't foresee them. Because whoever tells me I have seen that coming, it's something to laugh about for me, because of course you can be a very pessimistic person and try to prepare for every crisis that's coming, but that's neither good for yourself nor for your actions. I think the best way to actually prepare such situations is to have a higher degree of flexibility than others, to be able to react and to adapt yourself and your company to new situations in a very fast way. And I think with that, overall, we can say that worked out pretty well. We also found some surprises, and I think the most important thing is that you also have a very fast ability to learn and to, as Dominik said, be very decisive. That also means to process new information much faster, and to also have a very good filter between for the information that's actually noise and information that's valuable and relevant for your business, especially in this time. And just need to switch on the TV and you know what I'm talking about, because we get so much information and it's too much.
Yeah. What I'm missing here is a little bit the referring to, okay, cash position in the company, especially a young company. As an investor myself in businesses, I see these businesses running out potentially out of cash between 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year, where when times are tough in terms of sales or clients that are due to pay their bills are just simply not paying, that, however bootstrapped you are, you're going to get into trouble. What about that?
Yeah, I think that cash is the surface of the problem. Yeah, because whenever you have severe cash problems, you also have other problems. I would say that problem seldomly comes alone. Yeah, so I think it's very important to have good relations to your investors if you already have them, and be there always very transparent in your communication. Communicate problems that you face straight on, not only the good news. Yeah, that is one thing. And then when a crisis comes up, you also have a basis of trust that you can have a discussion on how to solve that together. Yeah, if you don't yet have investors, so if you're most probably very early stage or completely bootstrapped, I mean, those companies should have also, I would say, strings to some investors, so they're interested. Also earlier on, I mean, it always pays off to have longer term relationships, even with investors that are not invested or not fully committed, or say it's too early for them. Yeah, then it can be the right time to do the next step there. But I think the most important thing, besides these relations, is actually that you have a clear plan and a good idea to come over that crisis, because that's the basis on which anybody with a sense for business would provide you with money in such a situation. Yeah, I mean, we face a situation where we have usually a liquidity shock. That's in every crisis in that way. Valuations usually drop to some extent. In this crisis, it's very special because we didn't see the valuations of tech companies decrease very much. That is actually good for companies like ours. Yeah. And within a few months, we can even expect that this is going even above the levels that we have seen before the crisis. So there's really, this is, I think, also characteristically for that crisis, that you really have old and new economy hit to a different extent. Yeah. And I think it's also a good opportunity for the old economy that is still financially very strong to overthink their current strategies that they have of preserving mainly the status quo and move on to new ventures in the sense of their companies, and to also be there more innovative and capture new fields in new ways.
Yeah, I think this is a very important point you're making there, that even the old companies, industrial companies, they need to look more and more and embrace digitalization, because it is here to stay, and it is here to expand. So I take a couple of learnings here. You definitely seem to be riding with PreciPoint and the type of technology you're in, digital microscopy, a huge wave which has only started to really get moving. COVID-19 puts a spotlight on remote diagnosis, patients care wherever you are, and also on creating an ecosystem, a community of wherever you are in the world, you can participate as an expert in diagnostics. So you're riding that wave. And I guess everybody in that wave, in that process of the wave, will have to wake up that this is the way to go. Not only, Dominik, because they want to have more holidays and a more balanced lifestyle going forward, but because this is the way that more and more we will be looked after through telemedicine and through just, through the tube, rather than having a doctor, an expert right wherever you are in the world. And with that, I have to say thank you. Thank you to both of you, Dominik Gerber and also Nicolas Weiss, the two co-CEOs, young founders of PreciPoint. All the best to you. And well, keep on knocking at these potential clients or existing clients to just recognize what's coming in the future.
Thank you very much for having us, and congrats for this fantastic show, Patricia. It has been an honor. Thanks.
Thank you very much. It was really a pleasure.